There's a verse in the book of Colossians that I think a lot of people end up tripping over and getting really, really frustrated with. So I'd like to go over it today to unpack it, unwrap it a little bit, and hopefully simplify it so that we can apply it to our lives. Because I think that's really where the point of frustration is. People look at it and they think, I think this is good. I think this is great information. I have no idea how it applies to me. And I think two things are going on here. One, we want the verse to mean something that it doesn't. We're almost overcomplicating or making it grander than it really is. And I think when we look at it in context, we'll see that it means something very basic, but also very profound at the same time. But also, we've got a little bit of a crisis of self-confidence or self-esteem going on that I think we also need to address. The verse I'm talking about is in Colossians chapter 3, and essentially it's this section of scripture where it's a lot of commissions to different roles in the family, in broader society, in the church. And it's saying, here's what you need to do. You're in this role, do this thing. You're in this role, remember to do this thing. You're in this role, remember to behave this way towards these people. And this is kind of what's going on at the end of this chapter. But it all culminates with telling all the roles, do all things as unto the Lord. And I think this is so important, but it's also a little bit discouraging because people think, how in the world can I apply the things from my life and say I'm doing them as unto the Lord? How can I sweep my floors as unto the Lord? How can I be a garbage man as unto the Lord? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to us. We look at our vocations, our day-to-day mundane activities, and we think these things are not worth offering unto the Lord. They don't do anything for His service or for His glory. So I'll do them because they need done, but I can't offer them as unto the Lord. I can't do them as if I'm doing them unto the Lord because I can't really emotionally connect with this thing I'm doing being in God's service. I can't understand how those things correlate. So I'll do them, but as unto the Lord is a really high degree that I don't understand. And because I can't apply it, I get frustrated with my own life, thinking nothing I'm doing is important. Nothing I'm doing is worthwhile. I need to be seeking greater and greater degrees of action in God's service. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time and wasting His time and His gifts. And I think we get really frustrated at times like this. Now, I'm not saying if you feel called to do things or you feel like energized to head in certain directions or perform other duties, or, if all you're doing is sweeping floors and you think, I've got the energy to wash dishes too, go for it, do it. I'm not saying don't look for activity or action and don't look to serve the Lord in all the ways that you've been given gifts to do. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying we need to reject this self-esteem issue where nothing we do is good enough to be given to God or to be done as unto Him. Because when we do this, I think we are actually limiting God in a way as well. You guys might remember a few weeks ago that I posted this video about the widow's mite. And if you don't remember or you haven't checked it out, I recommend going and checking it out because I think that discussion really plays into this one a lot as far as self-esteem issues go with looking at what we have to offer and counting it as worth very little. The widow in the gospel story, just to give a brief overview, gave a very small monetary amount. It would not have been looked at as some great offering, and yet Jesus noticed it because her heart was right. She was trusting in God. She looked at what she had and realized, I have something to give, so I should give it. And she did with a willing heart, and Jesus pointed to her as the example of giving. And so I think this kind of plays in, especially because we need to realize 2,000 plus years after this story of the widow's mite was told, if you were to look at purchasing a widow's mite right now, you'll notice they have appreciated in value over 11,000%. And what's responsible for that? I would say it's time, because it's now a historical artifact. But if Jesus had never noticed the widow's mite, if it was not a vital biblical story, then it probably also would not have appreciated in value. It is a famous, popular coin that people want to purchase because it's connected to the biblical narrative and it's a piece of history. It ties, the real world to their faith, and I think people like that kind of thing. So with the notice of Jesus and time, this small amount has appreciated in value 11,000%, which I find absolutely wild and very encouraging, which means whatever small thing you have to give, do not count it out as something too small to offer up, because you're limiting God by saying you can't do anything worthwhile with this little thing that I have to give. Again, if you're only giving a little bit because you think, well, I've got a lot, but I only want to give a little bit, that's not the right heart. Jesus might not, work with that thing because he wants your heart to be in the right place, not just the amount you're giving. That's kind of the broader point here. But I think that applies to this section in Colossians 3:2 when we think about it. 3 also, not 3:2 like 3 verse 2. So let's read over this verse because I think that's a really good thing to do to get context for what's being said overall. But also I'd like to go through some examples in just a minute that I think will help us, hopefully, to connect more emotionally with this verse. Sometimes that can be hard when the language is not our language. It's a little bit old-fashioned. Maybe it's just very analytical, very matter-of-fact, and we don't exactly have ways that this applies to us specifically. So yes, throughout this verse, you might think, all right, well, I'm a wife, or I'm a husband, I'm a child, I'm a father, so I can kind of relate to those things. But then when we apply it to other parts of our lives, how do I do all things as unto the Lord? Well, okay, you've instructed me how to do these things as unto the Lord. Maybe I can understand that to a degree, but the little things, I don't know how to apply it. And I think that's the thing we need to go through. But let's get some context. In verse 18, it says this: "Wives, submit to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged." So here we have a section all about family, right? The different family roles. And Paul is saying, listen, here's some things you need to remember about your role and your responsibility towards other people. When you look at this other person, don't just see your husband, your wife, your child, your father. Think of them almost as God. It's not to say the individual person is God, but it kind of ties into that principle that Jesus offered up of, when I was in prison, you visited me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. And we're like, well, when did we do that? He's like, well, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. That principle is kind of woven throughout here. It's saying when you see your wife, your husband, your child, your father, you are not to just look at them as another person that you're serving. You are to serve them as you would serve the Lord. And so we can look at this and say, all right, generally I think I understand. These are good instructions. If I'm a wife, I need to submit to my husband as is fitting to the Lord. If I'm a husband, I need to love my wife and not be bitter toward them. If I'm a child, I need to obey my parents. We can kind of get these things that we would check off a list and say, am I doing that or am I not doing that? But again, how do I emotionally connect to that? How do I shift my thinking to think, all right, this is not just a person I'm seeing, I'm doing this as unto God. And we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. And I think once we see it in the examples I give, we'll see it more naturally. And hopefully we can apply that very natural feeling we have about my examples to this verse as well. It goes on to say bondservants, which I think is really important. I mean, families, sure, we can kind of understand that there's a godly analogy in the family unit, but bondservants, these are kind of the lowest of the low in society, people that think, man, nothing I do is worth much at all. I'm being maybe mistreated, or I'm being not cared for, or not paid very much. Like, this is kind of hard to be in this difficult service for my life. I mean, how do I, say that I'm a Christian following God, trying to preach the gospel and live a life according to his will, when basically I'm just under someone's authority doing menial labor all the time? And Paul is encouraging here, bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. And whatever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. So Paul is saying here, when you are a bondservant, you are serving the Lord Christ. When you serve your earthly master faithfully and well, and you work hard, that's what he's saying. But again, how? How is this possible? Now, this is where I want to get into some different examples that I found online that I think are really helpful. I read these and I thought, man, these just really resonate with me, and I find them so beautiful. Hopefully you do too. But I think these are ways that we can look at and say, well, clearly that's something meaningful. But we wouldn't look at it as meaningful until the meaningful thing happened. And I think this is a big key in understanding this verse. All right, so the first thing I want to read is a letter from somebody to their hairdresser, which is kind of just kind of a weird thing, but I've never written a letter to a hairdresser in my life, but apparently this person did, and there's a good reason for it. It says this: Dear Sarah, this is a little bit awkward, but I've waited a really long time to pass this on to you. My wife and I came in for haircuts shortly before Christmas of last year. My wife was suffering from dementia, and you treated her as if you'd been working with dementia patients all your life. You let us sit next to each other, and when it came time for her haircut, you turned her chair towards me so I could watch her expression as you cut her hair. It turned out even better than I thought it would. Sadly, she died in March, and that haircut was one of the last best moments of her life. I just got chills reading that. She felt so pretty. She visited the mirror in her bedroom several times during the day and would come out beaming. To see her so happy was priceless. Looking back, it was likely one of dozens of haircuts you gave that day, but one which revitalized a woman's sense of self and her singular beauty. I hope you always realize the power of your profession. It's so easy to take things like that for granted. Sincerely, a grateful customer. No one can listen to that story and think, who cares? It's just a person giving a haircut. No, you cannot. It's suddenly been elevated because it was meaningful to another person. I'm going to keep going here. This is from somebody who purchased something from someone on eBay. This says, hello, I found many old VHS tapes recently and wanted to see what is on them, and I realized I had no player. I went to eBay for the first time and discovered your offer. I bought your VHS player and you shipped it within a few days. The VHS looks new and unused. Amazing. I had some issues getting it going, which were mine and not the player. I'm 86 and perhaps not up to my game, but I do get there eventually. And I did, and discovered the VHS works perfectly. Thank you so much for your care, your efforts, and your promptness. I watched tapes of my retirement party from 25 years ago, which I had never seen before. Man, were we young. Then a tape of my wedding with all the family and friends, many of which are no longer around. Then skiing trips, kids growing up, travels, and most importantly, the gentle maturing of my family. Each one more fun than the last, all thanks to your generous selling of the VHS player. I thought you would appreciate how much someone has enjoyed your offer. Best regards. Again, a tiny thing, someone selling something on eBay, but to this person, it meant the world. It meant looking back on their life, being able to do like a life review and being reminded of all the special people and events that have gone on, making their life feel like it had value and worth. I'm going to keep going. Whenever I visited my grandmother, she would cut up fruit for me. I was around 8 years old when I realized she always peeled and cut these sweet fruits for me, but never ate any of it. That's when I had this great idea to always leave a piece for her. Every time she collected my bowl, she huffed, "Why are you always leaving one left? Is it not hard to eat one more piece?" And then she'd finish it for me. Now, she's too old to use a knife. Whenever I visit her, I cut some fruit for her. I don't cut any for myself, but luckily for me, she's always leaving a piece. This is so beautiful to me. I just think it's such a sweet example. He was thinking of doing something small and kind to his grandmother, and then she reciprocated and turned it back on him, realizing over time what he was doing. And I think that's just really beautiful. Let's keep going. One last example. I'm going to post a picture up on the screen as well. Made this rocking chair in 1997 woodshop class when I was 14. Had no idea why I've kept it for 24 years. 38 now, and I finally realized it belongs to my son. Might be a dumb post, sorry, but his face makes all those years worth it. In every single one of these examples, I get chills. I just think they're so good. These weren't even on the same page. I'm not exactly sure how social media realized I needed to see these or would bring them all together, but they're on different pages and they're posted by different people, but they all connected to me because they're examples of things where in a moment, people looked at their lives and thought, I don't really know the importance of this thing, but I'm going to do it anyways because I have to. Either this is how I make money, or this is the career I've chosen, or this seems like a generally kind thing to do, or maybe it's just for school, like the woodshop chair. But either way, people were just going about their day-to-day lives, and it came across as incredibly meaningful to someone else. The grandmother realized that her grandson was trying to love her by sharing his fruit with her, and then she tried to do the same. This tiny act turned into one of this person's most precious moments with his grandmother. The chair. This son, I mean, you saw the picture. His face is just like tickled pink, being able to rock back and forth in this little chair. And this dad is like, man, I'm so glad I kept that. Like, I didn't know why I was doing it, but now I see that it was meant for something greater. The haircut, man, this woman just goes through haircut after haircut after haircut, and she probably gets a little bit bored of it. I mean, I think maybe she likes her job, maybe she loves what she does, but over time, it does begin to become mundane. And yet this person's entire life was changed by seeing their wife happy for one last time before she died. That is meaningful. That's heavy stuff. These are all just very simple examples, and yet I think we can see very clearly and emotionally how the simplest things can be used for very meaningful things for other people. And when we do this for other people, we're also doing it to God, as Jesus says in the Gospels. So over time, some of the mundane tasks of life can become incredibly important to others if we faithfully do them. Now, I'm not sure that in every scenario that I just read, these people were doing it as unto the Lord, meaning they were really thinking about other people as being in God's image and serving Him through them. I don't know that all people were thinking that, but how much more could God do with us if that was our attitude towards everything we did? Now, you'll notice in this verse, it doesn't say, choose something that glorifies God. I mean, we do need to make sure that our lives are glorifying to Him. But as far as vocationally or day to day, the things that we have to get done, it doesn't say only do the things that you see as being effective or good work for God. Only preach the gospel. Only go and make sure you're evangelizing or bringing people to church. Only do that. It doesn't say that. It says whatever you do. Meaning you don't have to stress about what should I do that's glorifying to Him. You have to make sure your heart is right about the thing you're doing and give it up to God, realizing that He can do so much with so little.